For those who don't know, I'm Clint Betts. I do Beehive startups. It's kind of like what I do for a living. It's kind of weird. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about Beehive startups. This is like a seminal day for Beehive startups. Today, this day last year, Beehive startups launched. Today's our birthday, which is awesome, right? Right? We have this slide to represent that fact. So, real quick, and we normally don't talk about Beehive startups very much this event. We try to get right to the guests because we want to make these as valuable for you guys as possible. And by the way, this is awesome. So we've been taking this startup conversation series around the state of Utah. Provo, by far the biggest turnout. Give yourselves a round of applause. It's good to be home. Provo is where Beehive Startups is headquartered, so it's awesome to be home. It's cool to have this type of a turnout for an event like this. This is awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about Beehive Startups. Like I was saying, it's a seminal day for us. We're a year in, and not that we don't have tons of plans for the future, we do. And if you want to sponsor Beehive Startups, come talk to me. We have some awesome things going on. But I want to take just a moment to first thank all of you for making Beehive Startups what it is. I think Beehive Startups is entirely powered by the community, and the amount of support and outreach and the way that you guys have treated us has been awesome. We couldn't do that without you guys. And I also want to thank particularly Izeni, Jordan Gunderson, Gabe Gunderson, and there's a bunch of Izeni guys here. So they don't like this. They're not people who self-promote themselves very much, so I'm going to do it for them. I remember sitting in the conference room talking about Beehive Startups, whether we should be doing this or not, and it was a real debate, and I won. I usually win. And we did Beehive Startups, and so I get a lot of credit for Beehive Startups because you see my face on the articles or something. But it's really Izeni who deserves the lion's share of the credit. I got them cakes. Come up, guys. Anyone from Izeni should come up. I know if Stephen Darby is here, he worked on the site from the very beginning. Just real quick, I want the Izeni guys to come up. So let me tell you, give them a hand too. I'm not going to let him talk because he's going to tell me I'm being ridiculous. Come on up, guys. So this is Gabe, this is Jordan. I want to tell you a little bit about what Izeni does too. Izeni is a software development firm. They build startups. If you've heard of Weave, that came out of Y Combinator, raised $7 million. Izeni built that. And they are an amazing integral part of Utah's startup scene. And if you have a startup, if you have money, talk to Izeni. But this is for you guys. Woo! We got our cupcakes. Give them a round of a hand. Beehive Startups wouldn't be possible without these guys. Cool. So now let's talk about something even cooler than that. We're giving away $250,000 January 31st at Start SLC. If you are a startup, a tech startup, that hasn't raised more than $1 million, you qualify for this. The deadline is December 15th. Go to startslc.com, apply for this. Peak Ventures is involved in this. Kickstart Seed Fund. We have the 10 judges for Start SLC are basically a who's who of Utah VCs. You want to pitch, even if you don't win, because you can get these guys as your mentors. You can get them behind your company in a real way. So go to startslc.com, apply for this. This is $250,000. I haven't found a bigger pitch competition in the entire nation. This is happening in Utah. So again, we deserve a round of applause. Utah is doing some amazing things, and it's all because of VCs like Peak Ventures and Kickstart Seed Fund and Mercado and all these guys who are actively putting money into it. And that's what this is all about. Beyond the pitch competition though, Start SLC is probably going to be the largest startup festival that's ever happened in Utah. We have a hackathon going on. We have the Women Tech Council coming up. There's a lot of amazing things. And Mayor Curtis, we're coming to Provo, so don't worry about that. There will be a Start Provo. But yeah, go to startslc.com. You'll see more details on the event. And definitely if you're a startup and you want money, the winner of this thing gets $150,000, which is pretty awesome. And so yeah, that's what that is. Oh, and so, great, yeah, $250,000. Bruno. So come on up, man. Bruno, what do you do for the Entrepreneur Club?
So I'm just one of the loyal members of the Entrepreneurship Club, and we're just hard sponsoring this today here.
So I'm going to let Bruno, who actually sounds like Bruno, talk for a second. But this event wouldn't have happened without the BYU Entrepreneurship Club. They're awesome. Thanks to Tyson for making this happen.
So who here, we just want to give a shout out to all the students. Who here is a student of BYU currently, right now? This is exactly what we wanted to see. We appreciate all the talk about startups. I'll just hold this, makes it easier. We appreciate all the talk about startups. And we are the Entrepreneurship Club, the E-Club is what they call us here. And what we do is we help sponsor entrepreneurship. We help encourage that. What we do as a club is we invite every student out. It's kind of the hidden gem of BYU, because we have students from the engineering department, from business school, from arts, from every different department, every different school at BYU participate in the group. And what we do is we help you connect with other students who are also entrepreneurs or entrepreneurship minded, and also help you connect with some mentors and some individuals, as you'll talk about some mentors here, some local mentors of very successful companies, multi-millionaires. We have billion-dollar companies, corporations that we help connect you. You can come in and ask some questions. We do a little get-togethers similar to this one, and you can come and you can ask some questions, get some real answers, and learn from their mistakes so that you don't make the same mistakes. And actually today what we're doing is Cotopaxi is one of the companies that helps out the Entrepreneurship Club, and what they did is they provided some water bottles, and anybody who's a student that signs up for the E-Club today, we're giving you guys a free Cotopaxi bottle, courtesy of Cotopaxi. And the second part of the E-Club is actually the entrepreneurship, and we want to invite anybody who's not thinking of starting a company, but who's thinking of growing in a company, who's thinking of actually working for Uncle Sam or working for the man or anybody else. Because in an organization, you're going to have to know how to create different things, and they might give you a project that you need to work with, and it's basically like a startup. So we help you learn how to do all of those things, whether it be for yourself or inside a company. So all of you guys are welcome, and we appreciate having everybody here today, and we appreciate BYU for letting us throw this here. And just another round of applause for everybody.
Thank you to the BYU Entrepreneurship Club. This is awesome for letting us use this space. I also want Bridger to come up from FiberNet. All that pizza you guys just ate, Bridger bought it, so give him a round of applause.
Calories worth of pizza, so it was great. We got it over with in 10 minutes, so good job. Thanks to Beehive Startups for allowing us to be a sponsor. We're FiberNet. We are a data center in Orem. We provide proactive managed hosting. So anything from cloud hosting, dedicated hosting, co-location, managed hosting, we provide it all for you. So no matter what stage your startup is in, we can help. So come talk to us, come find us, let's meet and help you out. Also, in the back before you leave, we're giving away a Chromecast, so make sure you fill out your name and your contact information, and we'll do a drawing right after. Thanks, you guys.
So I don't know if I should let them speak after everything we just did. We'll skip Izeni. Go to izeni.com though. Awesome guys. UVF is holding a competition, and Sid from Peak Ventures, maybe we'll talk about it a little bit, maybe not. Go to uvf.com, apply for the Peak Ventures 100. It's the top 100 entrepreneurs in Utah. If either nominate yourself or nominate someone you know. So uvf.com, all that's happening there. This guy in the camera, I didn't make a slide for you, I forgot. This is May. You want to come down and tell a little bit about yourself? He's a sponsor of Beehive Startups. Mazer Media. Let's give it up for him. He's videoing this. This will be on BeehiveStartups.com.
Thanks, Glenn, for the opportunity. My first time filming here today. Just so you know, if you have friends that want to watch the video, it'll be on BeehiveStartups.com in a week or two. So just go ahead and let them know and check back often on the website. A little bit about my business. It's Mazer, M-A-Z-E-R. If you're a startup and you need a marketing video, a Kickstarter video, a promo video for a product, anything like that, We have over 10 years of experience doing that. We've helped small, big companies here in Utah as well as outside of Utah. We've done about 6 different Kickstarters, including videos and campaign marketing. So go ahead and go to mazermedia.com, M-A-Z-E-R media.com. If you have questions, you can see me afterwards. Thanks so much.
Speaking of UVEF, they have an event tomorrow. Ryan Westwood wanted me to let you guys all know that. I think it's about valuations. I don't know too much more beyond that. Again, go to UVEF.com. All right, so enough of that. I want to introduce Tammy Bowers from Lionheart. How the Startup Conversation series works is we have one up-and-coming startup come and present to the entire group about what they're doing, and then we kind of have the main speakers in the main panel. So this month's up-and-coming startup is Lionheart. Tammy, come on down. Tammy's awesome. Give her a round of applause. We'll let her take it from there.
Thank you. Clint, you usually start with that I'm your favorite entrepreneur. Oh, okay. And Clint is my favorite journalist, so we're good. So I wanted to start with a story. So this little boy at only 4 years old, in 2 weeks he'll receive his 12th surgery. 9 of those have been heart surgeries. He has 9 different doctors at 3 different hospitals, and he takes multiple life-saving medications every day. This just isn't any little boy, this is my son. I needed to be the one who was his expert. I needed to be the one who was in control of his medical care. And so that is what I did. I found that for caregivers, or anyone with chronic medical conditions, they need 4 things. They need help with managing care, coordinating care, quantifying data, and connecting to resources. All of these make it so that they can provide the best care possible. There are 133 million Americans that suffer with chronic medical conditions. And because of these, it has a higher cost. Actually, 86% of all healthcare costs is from people with chronic medical conditions, and worse outcomes. Medical mistakes are the 3rd leading cause of death in the United States, with over 1,000 people dying every day from a preventable medical mistake. And higher burden. Caring for someone with a chronic medical condition or having one yourself carries a high burden. This isn't just about steps you take or calories you take. The stuff that we track is life and death. There are 65 million caregivers in the US, and this is supposed to grow by 85% in the next few decades. Actually, most everyone in this room will be a caregiver at some time in their life, whether it be for their parents, their spouse, or their child. So our first target market, because obviously this is the one I know the best, is children. And there are 18 million children in the US with chronic medical conditions. And these kids are 4 times higher than a normal child to have a medical mistake. In the future, we know that digital health is huge. And everyone will have a digital platform that they're able to connect to their doctor or to manage their care from. Currently, there is no good system out there. There are systems, of course, there are competition, but we know that Lionheart will be that platform. Lionheart's enabling control and personal health care. By doing this, we're allowing people to take the best care possible of their loved ones, giving them the best possible chance of life.
We usually have like a 5-minute Q&A, so you guys can ask Tammy questions, just like 5 minutes, and then she'll be here afterwards, right? And then you can come talk to her afterwards as well. So let's take a couple of questions.
And this is my team. This is Drew, he is my CTO, and Raquel is our designer. So any tech questions you really don't want me to answer, that would go directly to Drew. So, questions?
Okay, so your product is something that deals with life and death situations. How do you help early adopters adopt your early product when it still might not be perfectly developed?
Oh, it will be perfectly developed. Actually, we have been working on this for over a year now. We had our first run at development that didn't turn out well. Lots of lessons learned with that one. And so this one, we are wireframing everything out. We have focus groups. We have a focus group tomorrow that will go through all the wireframes. So we're really taking this slow in terms of making sure these are not, this is something I'm going to use every day. These are my friends. And so this is something really important to me that it works well. Oh, okay, yeah.
So my question is how old is Lionheart, and what's the next plan, what's the next thing that Lionheart's going to be focusing on?
Yeah, so the question is how old is Lionheart and what's our next milestone or plan? Lionheart is almost a year old. I started this in February. I did Boom Startup Accelerator this summer, and then our next milestone would be to get our actual platform out there being used. So, Drew, actually, I have been, one of my mentors is Owlet, the sock. We're here at BYU, so most of you guys probably know the medical sock that does the pulse oximeter. And so Kurt, their CEO, has been helping me and working with me since I started. And he introduced me to Drew. And then Drew and I both just kind of interviewed each other and decided it would be a right match. And then Raquel was also just networking. Raquel was from another designer friend. And so we just kind of got introduced. So events like this, just networking is huge. So, oh, I forgot to repeat the question. Okay, next time.
Do you do your own coding in-house for your web apps and so forth, or do you hire that out? And if so, who does it for you?
That might work.
So to get the initial product out, we're doing a combination of outsourcing and in-house. Where I'm a CS guy, so I'm really familiar with the coding side of things, and we just are going to do a combination of the two.
Is it like a local somebody that you want to name them or not, or is it so comfortable? Or
Yeah, we're going with ZipTech.
Given the complexity of the medical market, do you aim to go after the consumer and have them pay for this? Or is it more going after the healthcare industry and having them pay for it?
So we are hitting the consumers, and the consumers are not going to pay for it. It's going to be a free download. I've also had interest from more the business to business. I just actually got an email today from the nurse over care coordination over the NICU at Primary Children's Medical Center that wants to set up a meeting because she thinks this would be great for all of her kids, all the parents of children with kids in the NICU leaving the hospital. And then also other organizations that have already prepaid for the app for their organizations. So kind of going at it both ways. It will be free to the consumer, and then also insurance companies. We've also talked to insurance companies, so that's another method.
Forgive my ignorance in the medical field, but are hospitals allowed to recommend an app like this for parents to do in the hospital?
I don't know that for sure. I know like certain hospitals around here do have apps that you can use, and so I don't know that. We're going more after the organizations because that's where people really turn toward for resources, and so that's kind of our main focus is organizations and not necessarily hospitals themselves, unless they contact me. So.
Like as journalists, you're supposed to be non-biased and not, actively promote startups. And for the most part, I don't. But a lot of times the word hero gets thrown around in entrepreneurialism and in startups. And most of the time it doesn't apply, right? Most people are just in it for the money to do stuff. Tammy actually started a company because of what happened to her son. Tammy is a legitimate hero. She deserves a round of applause. I think Lionheart's awesome. So I'm told Mitt Romney is in the building, but the best politician at BYU right now is Mayor John Curtis. Come on up.
So that guy looks really old. I don't know who he is.
I can't tell you really how excited when Clint invited me here and asked me to speak. I thought, I don't belong up here. I belong down there. And you guys, you just there's a vibe coming off you that is exciting. And I love being around you. It just is really cool to be here and to be with you. And so thanks for having me here tonight. So a couple thoughts I want to share with you. Clint said, would you take 60 minutes? And I said, no, I think I could do this in just a couple. Let me tell you why I'm so jealous of you. I know this is going to sound really bad. In 1985, I graduated from Brigham Young University. That seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? It was a long time ago. When I graduated, this building was half of what it is, but that's not the real difference. Let me tell you some differences. The economy was so poor in Utah that all of us knew we would have to leave the state to go find good, solid employment. It was just something that we all did. And we actually had one of my classes my senior year, he had us do a business plan, and we came up with a business we would do. And our business in my group was, we came up with this brilliant idea to have swimming lessons at city facilities, so we didn't have to pay for the facilities, and we could make a lot of money with swimming lessons. And we got an A, and my professor called me in and said it's the best idea he had ever heard. So, and that's the reality of the difference between what we had. I carried a laptop. 1985, I carried a laptop into class and I hid it because I was embarrassed, because it would have been kind of awkward to pull it out. It was a Radio Shack TRS-80. Yes, any of you familiar with that model? I still have it. I should have brought it here with me tonight. It had, are you ready? 64K of memory. True story. It had a tiny little screen. It ran on 4 AA batteries, this computer. And the way that you saved data was a cassette tape. And you downloaded it to a cassette tape and you would play it back and you'd hear this beep, 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 and that's how it saved data. I bought a printer for it that was a dot matrix printer, and the dot matrix printer was really a dot matrix printer. It had 4 little pin heads, and they would go and you would see it print out. I worked for a company called the Citizen Watch Company when I was a senior at BYU, and I would travel 6 states. I would carry this laptop and the printer in with me. I'd lay the computer on the desk, and they would order anything that I told them to order because it appeared as if it was coming out of the computer, and I was brilliant. And that was our world and our paradigm. And I'm pretty sure, I'm positive, had I enjoyed the resources that you have here, my whole career would have been different. I kind of went the corporate route for the first half of my career and the entrepreneurial route the second half of my career. But had I the resources that you have, I have no doubt I would have never gone to the corporate route. And I wonder frequently how my life would have been different if I had Camp 4, if I had, holy cow, a gig speed that I could, the internet, right? Even the internet is such an amazing thing. And so I'm jealous of you. This is an unbelievable time. I'm so excited to watch what you do and what you produce. It's just fabulous. So I do want to just take a minute to do something fun. So Dixon Holmes is in the back. Dixon is Deputy Mayor of Economic Development for the City of Provo. And we want to give away some limited edition collector series Mayor's socks. You can't buy them. They can only be given to you. And just to give you a small little sampling here. And so I don't do this for just anybody, but it gets better if I take off my shoes. So I'm going to take off my shoe and show you. So we have a line of these. They're Mayor socks. The label says, it shows the little crossroads between style and awesomeness. And I want to give away 3 pair. Now here's the catch. You have to come to my office to get them. So how many of you have ever been in a municipal building? Seriously? Really? How many of you have ever been to the mayor's office? Some of you have. Okay, I want to encourage you to come down to my office. If you come down and pick up these socks, I want to sit down. Let me know you're coming, because I want to spend a few minutes with you and learn about what you're doing and see what you're doing. So let's give away some socks. You come, but you have to come get them. So I don't know any way to do this other than try this. Okay, so who has a birthday on May 10th? Seriously, nobody?
Right there.
May 11th.
Okay, May 10th, right there, stand up. You and I share a birthday. Yes. Okay, if you can answer this question correctly, and I do have female mayor socks, and you can choose. Okay, recently, Forbes magazine ranked Provo number what as the best city for business and careers?
Number 1.
You got a helpline. Yes, number 1. Think about that. Little Provo City, right? Provo City, of all cities in the entire United States, was ranked by Forbes magazine number 1 for business and careers. And this is the city in 1985 where we had to leave to go get a decent job. It's amazing. It's fantastic. Okay, let's see. Who has a Provo Rocks t-shirt on? Seriously? Who knows what one is? Okay, right here. Come down here, Dixon. Yes, do you own a Provo Rocks t-shirt? You, right here, the tie. Are you the only one in this room with the tie on? Seriously? Yeah, stand up. Okay, so for a pair of mayor socks, or by the way, you can trade, if you don't want the socks, if you're just not into the socks, you can trade it in for a Provo Rocks t-shirt. Okay, recently, the cities were ranked by the dollar volume of capital, VC capital, invested in that city. Where did Provo rank? Eighth. Yes, Provo City was 8th. In big and small cities across the United States, Provo City ranked 8th. Give him my card. Contact me and we'll talk and come pick him up. Okay, the last one, let's see. Who knows what year Provo City was founded? Yeah, I knew I'd get you on this one. Come on, think about it. Who wants to take a guess? Way back in the back, what year?
1850?
1849. Okay, so now you got to answer the question. No, that was only to get selected. Okay, stand up. Of the VC capital invested, if you break it down for the dollars per investment, where did Provo City rank?
Number 1.
Number 1. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Provo City, number 1. Thank you. It's been fun to be here with you tonight. You guys rock. This is a great place to do business. I'm so excited to even be remotely associated with you. It's a real honor to be here. Thank you.
So as a journalist, you're not supposed to be. No, I'm just kidding. Mayor Curtis will be running for governor. He just announced it. All right, so this is the Startup Conversation Series. Come on up, guys. We have Sid Krommenhoek. I've never said your last name. That's the first time I've ever said it. Did I say it right? You got it. Sid Krommenhoek, David Blake, and Ryan Caldwell. The floor is theirs now. They're going to tell you a little bit about themselves. I'm going to set up some chairs for them. And yeah, give them a round of applause. This is the Startup Conversation.
Really a special opportunity. We have the mayor in the house. I mean, when you think of entrepreneurs, there's a lot. I've seen some of you. We have Bubba, who just got back Kodak from Techstars. The first company, Utah company, went through Techstars. As an entrepreneur, I'm delighted that my mentor, Jeff Birmingham, who really brought me to, from entrepreneur, my last startup, and said, look, I want to do something special, started Peak Ventures. Jeff, do any of you live in the Village by chance? Yeah. By raising the hand, anybody in the Village? So Jeff, their firm also owns the Village. Super active in what's happening in Provo, whether it's entrepreneurship, housing, athletics, lots of things. So really, and I have a chair here, great. So wanted to set a little bit of context, explain who we are, kind of what we do briefly, and then really just from the gut, give you a feel. And my role here is to extract from these gentlemen some of what they've learned in their startups. These are $2 billion opportunities that they represent. It's super interesting. I happen to know both. So if you think about, sometimes we say it takes a village to raise a child, right? So if you think about your startup as your baby, sometimes that's the cliche, right? Your baby turns into a toddler, maybe turns into a child. If your startup's a child, it takes a village, really, a team, to lift and raise a startup. If that's the case, and that's the metaphor, we're villagers. So we were all together in a startup not long ago, here in Provo, downtown. Many late nights, Ryan and I pitched, raised venture capital together. It was a blast. Dave and I have looked at like spreadsheets ad nauseum, all that he built. This guy is like freakishly brilliant, and not just on that side of things, but marketing and otherwise. And I've never met two, and this is real, never met two people that I've worked with that have been more deliberate about being a CEO of something they believed in. And I knew that part of our journey together in that startup was really just a stepping stone to later interesting companies they would found. Quick context, Sid Krommenhoek, last startup was Zinn. She was a local company. We sold it to Chegg, a larger company in the Bay Area. And then Chegg, I was with them when we later IPO'd. It was a fun journey. I'm delighted to be back in Provo again. My mentor and good friend Jeff Birmingham invited me to Peak Ventures, where now I spend my days, and we look at startups. We unfortunately can't invest in but a few of them. We've looked at over 1,000 companies and have made 11 investments in the first 6 months of operating. But we hope with every company to at least impart like a little bit of wisdom that we may have gained and hopefully point you in the right direction.
All right. So it seemed like about a third of the room was still students, if that's about right. But so a stat that kind of drew me into the space that I'm in. So half of all college graduates will never once in their life be in a profession that makes use of their college degree. And that's everyone who graduates. Of those who enter a foot on a college campus, only half of those will ever go on to graduate. So in general, half of students who go to college graduate, only half of those will ever use their degree. And when I started Degreed, and that just felt wrong to me. And Degreed's now about 2.5 years old, and it was a time when education was really changing. The internet has brought an enormous amount of different ways that we can learn. And increasingly, people are learning from a diversity of sources over the entirety of our lives. And yet, if you ask anyone, tell me about your education, they will tell you where they went to college. This is true of people who are 50, 60 years old. This is true of recent grads. This is true of dropouts and people who didn't ever go to college. They will say, oh, I didn't go to college. No one has ever answered in all of the dozens, hundreds of times I've asked people, tell me about your education, with their passion, their interest, the last book they read, the last course they took. The only answer we have is college. And it captures such a finite part of our learning. And I started Degreed to solve that, to be the place that can capture all of your learning across the entirety of your life, all of your academic, all of your professional, all of your informal learning. That's what we do.
So we're really hoping all of you will drop out kind of after this.
So, how many of you like your relationship with your bank, are impressed by your bank or your credit union? Got a couple minutes? Okay, so we got someone who do like it. How many of you feel like you could get a whole lot more out of your banking relationship, like your bank or credit union could take better? Okay, so what MX, we used to be called MoneyDesktop, what MX is all about is about being able to help a financial institution be an advocate for the end user. And we fundamentally believe that that is paramount for banks and credit unions being able to survive long term. We feel like they haven't been good at being able to deliver the right types of solutions that the end users ideally want. And we look at like a Google mentality of over-delivering for search. We believe the same thing should occur for financial information. So if you look at what you're spending every day, if you look at where your money's going, we believe that a bank should be able to provide software that gives you guidance very similar to the same way that you have GPS giving you guidance to wherever you want to go in your life. You get to pick your destinations, and your bank should be responsible and should be an advocate to help guide and get you there. And we believe that all of their transactional data is probably the most valuable data on the face of the earth, we feel like. And we feel like if properly analyzed, it can be done for your benefit to be able to give guidance and advice to get you to your most important goals in your life, or to support the more important goals in your life by being able to not have finances be a high point of stress or a roadblock to options for you. And so that's what MX does.
If you have burning questions, feel free to just fire up your hand and we'll go with that way. I prepared a list that I think will, again, help us get a feel for their journey. First, an interesting note, again, I know these guys, is they both, top of their class, right? Ryan was at the Air Force Academy before coming to BYU. Dave was at BYU. They both later went into consulting, making great weight, right? Great living, had an opportunity to sort of go down that corporate path, but were very deliberate in leaving it. So my question is, why a startup? You know, you both could have had that path. You were in Texas, you were in the Bay Area, and I know you're making interesting money, and you both left it. Can you share with us why a startup and what really was the impetus there?
Yeah, so for me, really my life and my career has been defined by this mission around education. And I came out of BYU without really knowing how to pursue it. I am not a natural-born entrepreneur. I'm not the guy who gets up and tells about the business he started when he was 12 and and then at 16 made $500,000, whatever. I mean, just not a natural-born entrepreneur. And so for me, coming out of BYU, I didn't see anything interesting. I didn't know what path to take. Management consulting was in some way just a way to continue to helicopter and to learn. And so when I caught wind about Zinch, which Sid is the co-founder of, it was this beautiful intersection of the things that I believed in and felt like would springboard, my career and my passion, which was, technology and education. And it was the perfect marriage. And, just brief anecdotes. Sometimes the stories are really the most fun. I sent these guys emails, cold. They did respond. They were responsive, but it was a little bit slow. So kind of every 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I would get an email. But I really wanted to do something. So I got a plane ticket, flew out unannounced, and came to the office and took them to lunch.
Baguio.
It was a fateful day. Took the founders to lunch at Baguio. And they had no reason in the world to hire me. I had to manufacture that reason and pitch them an idea for their business. And they said, yeah, okay. And I said, yeah.
He's good looking, he's smart. Come on, join the team.
And that was it. I came out 2 weeks later on vacation. We inked the deal, and my vacation back to Utah just never ended.
Cool. Yeah. Ryan.
So my path was a little bit different.
I didn't have a business when you were 6 years old?
No, not quite 6. But when I was in college, I kind of would always see issues or problems that I thought should be fixed. And my first company that was of any significance was while I was going to school here. And I saw, I don't want to hear, I'm trying to think, there's probably some people in the crowd who can remember these days. When internet used to, like the fastest internet was 256K kind of a thing, and they had internet in a lot of the multi-dwelling units or multi-tenant units. They had instead of being able to order your own cable modem or your own DSL modem and split it with your roommates, you actually had to pay individually $20 or $30 per person, and there'd be like 6 people in a condo, and so they'd be making $180 off each condo if everybody got internet, and it just felt so egregious to me. It felt ethically wrong that I just felt there had to be a better way to do it. And so a company that I built, Mackie Internet, we came up with the idea of bringing one high-speed internet connection into a multi-dwelling unit and then routing it on-premise across all the individual units. And I sold that a few months before I graduated for a little shy of $3 million. And so for a college kid, it was a good exit for me. And then, well, yeah, so it was good. And so I had some flexibility, and I wanted the same things that drew you to management consulting is what drew me down that path. I wanted to see how large companies worked. I felt like I kind of understood some of the basic fundamentals of building a smaller company, but it was really different with the big companies. And so management consulting firm gave me the ability to go out and do security tech consulting. For my first client was Microsoft. My second one was Visa. And so got to work with some pretty big clients, did some work in London and Singapore. So management consulting gave me that exposure. And after only 9 months of doing that, I decided I wanted to go back to entrepreneurship as quickly as I could. And so got back down that path and bumped into these guys as I got back, worked with a few different startups, but for a short stint at the beginning of Zinch, worked with that team and saw those guys kind of take off the ground, and the rest is history.
Cool. So I want to ask about one of two things, and maybe just by a raise of hands you can say what's more interesting to you. So either one, hiring talent, so how they go about it, and they've attracted some great teams, that's one, or ask about the user experience. Like they both have products that ultimately serve an end user, whether that person is seeking professional development and education through their company or somebody who's using the interface that their bank's created. What do you care more about? Customers, two customers, or one talent, hiring talent on their team? Everybody for customers, two, raise your hand. And everybody for hiring talent? Okay, more on the talent side. So let's ask. So I happen to know that a bunch of people at our last company are attracted to Dave's company, and those in San Francisco. They're kind of flocking there. And then a lot of, frankly, the startups that we're investing in are trying to lure talent away from MoneyDesktop. Not that any of them have been successful with it, but they may be trying. So I would love to just hear from both of you, like what your MO is as it comes to like attracting talent. How do you do it, and what can you share?
I think, my opinion, the first step in attracting talent that I think is the most meaningful is, well, I'll kind of combine two things. One is the vision of what the company's doing has to resonate with that talent. If they can't, as a very talented, intelligent person, look at it and say, wow, that makes sense, that could be huge, and it doesn't get them excited, you're not really getting off the ground. So you have to have that first component. The next thing that I think is just key is sometimes, without even someone understanding the vision, you can still recruit great talent, is your existing talent pool has to be great. So one of the biggest things that has allowed us to attract great talent at MX is we've had engineers who are really talented, who could be CTOs of other companies, that have come to join our team because they want to work next to other engineers that they have a huge amount of respect for, or that they believe are some of the best engineers at what they do. And then later they hear about the vision, and they're like, well, this company's amazing, it's going to take off, and they get excited later. So we've seen people come in from both sides, but I think those are the two biggest elements that we use to attract talent.
Cool. I think there's a few different things, swirling through my head. One is, I've been on both sides of the equation. I've been, the guy trying to break into the startup world, and how do you, land that job, and a little color there, but to how do you hire, and what is it about? And so Degreed, I live in San Francisco. We have offices in Salt Lake and San Francisco. And, San Francisco is one of the hottest job markets right now in anything. So the people on average have their job for 14 months. So the velocity is just incredibly high. People job switching will have dozens of opportunities, and often a dozen offers. The perks and the pay, it's incredibly, it's just really, really hard. And so getting good at hiring is something that makes or breaks you, and is really mission critical. I'd say, for us, it's really, we've had this advantage of our mission, of what we're actually doing, and it's something that there's only a few great affinities in life. There's God, country, athletics, family, friends, learning. There aren't that many things that the entire human race universally
all carry a narrative around. There just aren't that many of them that we universally care about. And we are lucky enough to be pioneering meaningful change in one of those areas, and it's become a huge competitive advantage for us, is that we are able to draw people away from excellent jobs and excellent opportunities and far greater compensation because of how learning resonates and is so meaningful to each and every one of us. So that's been a huge thing for us.
Thanks, guys. We can go a little bit further down this rabbit hole with asking about their culture. So they both have unique cultures, I think, at their companies and how they're building those. Or we could kind of switch to industry. So they happen to be two industries that are, again, if you look at industries that are rapidly changing, education and financial services are. Would you rather talk about one industries or two culture? Industries, raise your hand. Culture? Okay. It's about a tie. We'll say culture. We'll go with it a little bit more. So Ryan, you've got been in your offices. You have the guns going on. You've got a building you're building at the point of the mountain. A brand that just changed. You went from MoneyDesktop to MX. Like clearly, you care about what this brand and this culture, is kind of exuding. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you're doing? And then Dave, I think you're at an interesting point where just raising a large, meaningful round of financing, $7 million in all coming together. Like as we speak, super cool. A little bit earlier than where Ryan's at, new offices in San Francisco, soon to be announced probably offices in Salt Lake. So a little bit earlier on, what you want to do, because sometimes it's a function of resources a little bit. Maybe we'll start, Ryan. You can share with us your approach.
So our culture is unique, and we realize our culture is not for everyone. For sure, it's not for everyone. One of the interesting things about our interviewing process.
What do you mean it's not for everyone? Does that mean it's really tough? You guys were there till midnight? Like, what does that mean?
What it means is that the people there care immensely about what we're doing, and they also have to be in a phase in their life where they're willing to make, they want to make their mark, right? And so
they work long hours.
There are a lot of long hours, but the reason why it's so beneficial for them is what they're getting out of it is usually so high. So you have somebody who, to me it's analogous to somebody will take, like my older brother went through, 14 years of med school, fellowship, specialization, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And he's this highly, highly specialized doctor. And he put these crazy hours in, and now he has the benefit of being a really good doctor.
So whether you're a doctor or to start like
right, I've always been baffled by people who don't view the same level of commitment is not, honestly, even potentially many times over, more worth it for entrepreneurship. You have a chance to build a company that has reverberating effects throughout the entire world and fundamentally moves the needle forward for the world to incrementally, at a noticeable increment, be better. We're recruiting like crazy, right? So we're interviewing like crazy. But when we really find someone that we like, that last part of the interview is, we're not holding anything back as far as what we are.
Yeah. So talk to me about the other element of it. Can I just use that quickly? The other element is, so I follow you guys on Instagram, is one of your employees battling cancer, right? You guys are public with it, so I feel like it's, it's obviously sensitive, but not, so there's kind of also the softer side to it. I feel like there's sort of like, go hard with your family, you yell at your family, and then you hug your family at the end of the day. Is that how it works?
Like, talk to us about the other side.
Totally. And a great way to talk about it is, it's like, to me, what it is, it's like a sports team. So this is literally, I'll give you the talk track of what we'll say when we're interviewing somebody. People either love or hate working at MoneyDesktop or MX. And you're like, well, how can it be both? There's a great company, everybody loves it, or it's not a good company, people don't like it. And we don't believe in that. What we believe in is that there are certain people that they are used to being the best on their team. And like, let's use a sports analogy, like a basketball team. They're used to being the best. They're like killing it. They're putting in all the time in practice. This is their time to shine, and they want to do great stuff. And then they'll get down there. They're just killing themselves to get down court, and they'll throw the ball to somebody who just kind of lets it go right through their hands and misses, or kind of gets it and takes like a lame shot and doesn't really. And they're being driven crazy because their overall staff of their own performance and their own ability to have impact on the world is limited by the fact that the other players don't care as much. So that person is like, man, I don't care about the extra practice. I'll put in the extra 15, 20 minutes of practice. I'll stay an extra bit longer, and I will kill it at every game. Just please, for the love of everything that's sacred, give me a team that cares, right? And so that kind of person comes to Money Desktop or MX now, and they're just like, they're so happy that they found this home. And it is this thing where you work like hard, you work crazy, like intense, so as far as like it's just, people will argue over ideas. We don't argue about people, our egos, but we'll argue ideas pretty heavily. But they tend to like love that, right? Where I feel like people who aren't up for that, because they're either in a different phase of their life, it's not always that the person's not a good fit. Maybe they're in a phase where they just spent 5 years at a startup that they put all this energy into and failed, and they're just completely burned out. But other times, it can be someone who took that, they did that, so they're a startup person, but they took a 2-year break or something at a big, boring corporation, and now they're hungry to get back in and they're re-energized, then we might be a good fit for that person.
Cool. Dave?
I mean, so we're interested, right, in investing in Dave's company, and he walks me through the vision, and at the end of it is like, can you support this? Which I thought was cool, but it was clear, like, I know the background of, there's been years of battle, right? So part of this is personal, like if you can't get on the ship, right, I don't want you on.
Yeah, again, I mean, a lot's supposed to do the head. I think to contrast it, coming out of BYU, interviewing, like culture, corporate culture, you know, I mean, people were trying to articulate that, or, you know, our culture is this way, that way, do you think that's a good fit? I mean, you know, and I was just, sure, you know, like, I don't know, I mean, just, do you want to work in a cubicle? Sounds great, you know, I mean, I was just, sure, you know, that's my culture too. I mean, just, you're so eager to just, you know, fit. And that's, you know, maybe I'm just, you know, didn't have much of a spine back then, but I think it's all too natural coming out of school. You don't know until you're just eager to please. But increasingly, I mean, you know, now the inverse. I mean, so, you know, so what Sid is referencing, I mean, you know, startups are crazy. There's been, you know, and if we get a chance to talk about tonight, I mean, the fight, the struggle, you know, all of the pain and toil, the emotional, just, you know, struggle of it all. And if anything, as an entrepreneur, you're vulnerable. You know, just the forces of competition, of having to build something. I mean, you're just always very vulnerable. And you know, and yet, especially the dynamic or the conversation of fundraising is, you know, you need that person. The financing, at least in our case, you know, we are a venture-backed company where we're starting to generate revenue, but we have to have financing. And you need that financing more than they need you. They want you, they want to get a return, but we need financing. And yet, you know, for all of this, for, you know, what you build, once I put all that into degree, it wasn't something that I was going to then, you know, sacrifice. And so our culture, our mission, you know, is something that we protect. And because it's one of the most valuable things, and it's one of the hardest things to build, it's one of the easiest things to lose. You know, our actual culture, I remember to contrast it, like when I joined Zinch, and again, there's just different dynamics, and you know, I would say our culture sounds quite different than, you know, MX, and Degree's culture is now quite different than Zinch's. I remember, like, week 1 of Zinch. So again, I'm this starry-eyed kid. I just found, you know, my dream company in Zinch, and great founders, super excited. I get there, I come out of, you know, cubicle land, corporate America. And I get there, we're in a dingy office, you know, had different carpet in every room, and, you know, pulling up, and I was excited by it. I mean, it's the
We had a
thrill.
probation office across from us. They stole my wallet a couple times.
We you know, and I get in there, and it's like the first, I start on Monday, and like by Friday I'm in there, I'm clacking on my keyboard, and Sid comes in and asks me to put on headphones. And because there was, the walls were paper thin, and they had to have, you know, a founder discussion. And it was hot and heavy, and they were screaming, and there was just a high tone. I mean, it was, you know, Sid and Mick and Brad, the founders, you know, just brothers, and a high, you know, conflict and intensity. And Zinch made it because of that. It was, you know, it was just fueled by a tenacity. And,
And I mean, there's just different dynamics to different cultures. For us, our mission is different than our culture, is different than our brand. Ultimately, our culture to us is really, about the principles we try and instill. I'll pause. It's cool.
Cool. How are we doing on time? I just want to be sensitive and kind of. Okay, so the question is, how do you distinguish yourself, your product, and get people to really love it and be passionate about it?
Yeah, I'll speak to that. So we're, so a little bit about kind of our company, just give a couple quick stats. So we have about 500 banks on our platform. We're one of the fastest growing fintech companies in history. Our adoption is just incredibly rapid right now. And we believe a large part of that is because of our interface has done so well. There's a conference that they hold in San Francisco and New York called Finovate. It's for financial innovation. And a lot of it is based off of the whole experience and how big of an innovation it is. And our UI and UX that we've presented there, we're the only company in history to win 4 in a row. And companies like Wells Fargo, Google, PayPal have all presented there.
What do you chalk it up to? So if you were to what's the...
Do you focus group of all that, or how do you...
No, we actually don't. We'll do focus groups to check it after the fact, right? But I don't think it's possible to get user feedback that's going to help you craft the solution. In the sense directly. You'll get user feedback of what do you love, what do you hate, and as you listen to that, you have to craft something that works, and then you get a second set of user feedback that says, did we do the right thing? But if you're actually expecting the user to say, I wish that this was here, I wish that that was there, and you're listening to all that feedback, you'll come up with a pretty Frankenstein solution, in my opinion. But some of the things that we use that we are kind of like edicts that we have. One is, anytime that we're making a human do something, for us, financial industry just resonates with this because so much of the work that computers should do, they're making humans do. So a lot of our big innovations that we've done on the UI and the UX side is what can we do to make what the user has to do, what the user has to do to understand the interface, to know what to do about the interface, what are they getting to know. So like budgeting is a big part of kind of what we do, spend analysis, stuff like that, right? And even goals. So like we looked at like goals where goals used to be like a list of goals, and we're like, well, that's not how a human thinks. A human thinks about, these are my goals that I'm facing right now, and then there's other goals that are way off in the distance, like retirement. And then when you think of that, well, way off in the distance, well, why doesn't the UI represent that? So a lot of our UI has to do with what are things that you're used to in life that you already are experiencing, and how do we take those concepts and tie them into financial complex numbers. So if you look at, we have this famous thing that we show budget bars of 2 different accounts side by side, and we ask them which budget's on, which budget's off, like which one should the user be worried about, and they're 2 different accounts, and users can't tell. CEOs of banks pull it close, they start adding up the numbers of each budget and trying to figure out which budget's red, which budget's green, and then we show them our interface, and within a half of a second they can tell exactly which one's on or off. But literally pulling it close and taking 30 seconds to try to add up the numbers, they can't figure out the old interface. Every single budgeting system was done that old way before we did what we did. And we did what we did because, again, it gets back to that obsessed personality. We have people who are saying, it's gotta be better. We actually do feel a moral imperative that we have been entrusted with the ability to serve 500 banks and growing, that if we don't deliver great software, we're leaving millions of people with a frustrated interface for them to manage their money, which is going to lead to additional stress and additional stress. And because we take that charge seriously, we do. We that night, we almost stayed up all night long trying to figure out that particular solution. So that's part of how we do it.
Dave, can you take a crack at it? What would you add?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I'll answer, I think it's getting to be more of an actual science. Good product development. I think, there are a lot of great resources out there. There's different, camps of thinking from the lean startup, and I mean, so there's just different approaches. I think, with us, things that resonate is you can't, get a user group to, craft a great product. It will turn into a Frankenstein. It's so easy to think of things and lob them in. It's so hard to pull stuff out. I mean, there's just reasons why that doesn't work.
So does that mean you have to have the product genius, or it's sort of building by collaboration internally? Like, what is it? If it's not that, what is it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for us, it's we're supposed to be the experts. I mean, so MoneyDesktop, the world is, trusting and that they are the experts, to figure this out. Agreed, the world is trusting that we more than anyone else have spent, the hundreds of hours thinking about this. It is up to us to present and craft an excellent solution, and from there, it's all about the usage. And from there, I think it's about getting the metrics, it's about getting the feedback, it's about getting the friction down, utility up. I think, engagement loops, so trigger, engage, validation, and feedback. There really is, there's just kind of lots of paradigms from there, but, lead and then listen.
Cool. Question, right here. All right, so the questions were, how are you different from Mint.com, MX, and how did you raise the first round? Talk to us about that process, Dave.
So we think that Mint was a great first run, but it barely scratched the surface, right? I mean, it would be like somebody stopping and work on an automobile with the Model T, right? I mean, it was great. The whole idea of aggregating accounts, moving them all in one place, that's a good core fundamental of what we're building on. But we think it would be as if Google stopped with just really good search results and not having an image row, not having maps, not having Street View, not having Canyon View, not having shopping built in, not having you enter Southwest flight 492 or whatever, and it immediately tells you it's on time, here's where it's flying from, and all that information is immediately available. Google is obsessed with making your life more convenient. And so I think that paradigm resonates through us, because we think, if you think about it, let me give you a little bit of a peek way into the future.
Or maybe even a use case of here's one thing today, for example, that is fundamentally different, and maybe where we're going.
So when's the last time that Mint told you we believe that you should have an advocate in your pocket. That phone should have an app on it that should be defending you like crazy. The same way that a super wealthy person, like some of my buddies, they'll be like, I want to buy that building, and they have their financial guy right next to them that says, no, there's 2 buildings that are a better price or whatever, right? That's only available for guys who have 100 million in net worth, right? But that should be available to everybody. It should be democratized, right? So that means that as you pull into the parking lot in Home Depot and you break the geo fence, that some bank should take that financial information of where you shop and know that you consistently shop at Home Depot and pre-negotiate without you having to do any work a price with Lowe's that will give you $100 off if you'll just go try them out today. And you shouldn't have to think about it, you shouldn't have to worry about it. You shouldn't have to bring a coupon, you shouldn't have to do anything. You just happen to say, okay, great. You drive over to Lowe's, you swipe your card, and it automatically gets refunded, and it entirely occurs in the back end. And so you have this little device that is like a little pit bull, guarding every single cent you have and protecting you. And it's also getting you towards your retirement, it's helping you save, it's helping you do all the things you want to do on that front, but it also should be guiding your daily spend in a real way, and Mint doesn't even remotely come close to fulfilling on that vision.
So our financing history, we just closed our Series A. We've got Phil in row 3. We just closed with Signal Peak. Technically we did a seed round and now our A. So our first round, it was definitely about, finding the right people. And that was really on me to curate, who are people that have that interest in education. So one of them, was Mark Cuban. At the time, Mark Cuban, he operates a blog. He blogs, I don't know, it's not that often, every kind of 6 to 8 weeks, on something that he believes is really important. And he had fired off a couple of blog posts about, the future of education. That kind of be careful, your university isn't going to be around in 50 years. Are you sure you want to be holding that paper? And so I knew he was interested. And so I sent Mark Cuban a cold email. It was 2 sentences long. And it said, the subject line was, we're jailbreaking the degree. And he wrote back within a matter of hours and said, this sounds awesome, tell me more. I sent him another email. It was 2 paragraphs and had a brief deck. And he wrote back again within a couple of hours and said, I'm in, what do you need? Trust me, that isn't how it went with everyone else. But that said, at some level it's not that different. It's about, finding the right people, about what resonates. And if I've learned anything, it is, there's so much personal narrative, not just on me, the entrepreneur, but on their side. I mean, what they're looking for, the history and the tenacity. Again, I mean, there's a lot that's really emotional about the investment decision, and and there's wisdom in that. But and so it's not always just about the market size. It isn't always just about the numbers, and that's, if anything, as someone who's now fundraised for my own company for the first time, kind of been the surprising factor of just how many other dynamics play into that process.
Question right here. What did you spend the most time on in the first 3 to 4 months of your startup?
Prototype.
So for us, in the first few weeks, we pretty much solidified the vision that we've stuck to this entire time. So we haven't changed the vision of the path we wanted to execute on. But one of the first things that we did is immediately went out and got customer feedback. We're in a little bit of a different position where we sell to banks. So we had to go out and immediately say, we think this is huge, we think this makes sense. What parts of it are you excited about now and paid for now? So that way we created a path of the order of how we build things. So we built the things that they would buy today, and with them excited about the things that they can potentially have on step 5, 6, and 10, right? Those types of things. But we had to build something right out of the gate that we knew would resonate with them, that they would purchase now, and we could be profitable on. So that enabled us to be able to make money early.
Other questions? Right here. How many VCs or angels did you have to talk to before you found your first round?
Sid was saying someone needs to poke at the failure part of all of this. So quite a few, I stepped out. So this just gets into the personal side of it. To be quite honest, I had come through Startup Plan. At Zinj, we had an exit, but it was an equity-based exit, and so there wasn't a lot of cash liquidity. So I lived on startup salary, for the real entirety of my career. Not a large personal runway. I knew I had to raise money quickly, which meant ultimately really kind of prematurely. So I did a lot of pitching before the money came in. Specifically thinking back, how many of you are familiar with Fred Wilson? So probably not enough, given that you're sitting here and interested in this event. But one of the kind of preeminent VCs in New York, I pitched him. It's just one of those things you learn. Just comically early. The deck. I still have the deck that I showed him. It's one of those moments looking back. Just so early, and it's the kind of the, oh, you're such a cute little entrepreneur. It was, and I'm sure Sid is now, had those moments as he's on the other side of the table. But, and so I got through a lot, and some of it is just the chicken and egg. You got to kind of fight through until, for us, we're doing something. We're not cracking. We're not a better mousetrap in an old genre. No one has ever done what we've done. We've operated now for almost 3 years. We don't have a direct competitor. We have, competitive pressures from other people in the market, but we don't have a direct competitor.
So can you ballpark, Dave, like how many would you guess? You've pitched angels and VCs.
Yeah, 40.
So I'm going to tie my answer with a little bit of advice of why I think, depending on how early you are in your career, how it makes a huge amount of sense to join a startup like Degreed or like MX, or any startup that can give you a certain amount of experience. For me, having had a certain amount of experience under my belt enabled me to make certain phone calls to other CEOs or founders that had already had successful exits.
You may have to rewind back for this question to like your first start, but did you even raise money?
Yeah, I didn't. For the first startup, bootstrapped it.
Okay. It's kind of a unique situation.
Yeah, there's some stories there. So there's some bootstrapping stories there. There's bootstrapping, then there's bootstrapping. And I was definitely bootstrapping. So it's amazing what you can live off of. And so, for that bootstrap. But recently, I think what's important is if I'm looking at a path, getting some experience in a startup allows you to make certain amounts of connections and have a certain number of wins. That our first $4 million that we raised was all internally, just management people. It was, hey, you want to come join the company? I think the idea is awesome. Great, throw in $500K, $650K, and don't work for a year. That's the deal. And I was like, it's the best job ever, right? And so that was their first. We have 8 former CEOs or founders that have all had successful exits. One guy we pulled out of retirement for 13 plus years.
But I think there's a lesson there too. I mean, that fundamentally changes the conversation that you have with an investor if you've said, because we did that at Zinch, it was first 5 employees, 25K, each founder X, and so everybody, all of a sudden you go to raise money and it's, hey, we've got skin in the game and I bet my money's a higher percentage of my net worth than the money you would give us is of yours.
Right. Skin in the game is absolutely critical, and I also think people who are known quantities, sometimes you don't have the luxury of betting on known quantities, but people who you know are able to believe, want to believe, and want to create something great makes a big difference. But it can take a lot. I mean, Zinch days, let's talk about that pitch, right? We pitched together there, and we pitched a lot. And we had some great conversations, and we had some rough conversations, and a lot of lessons learned there.
Sure, yeah. So just to be sensitive to everybody's time, there may be some who want to linger around. Maybe we'll take one more question and then we'd be delighted after the fact to hand a card, answer a question, whatever. Again, appreciate a bunch of you just sticking around. I know it's kind of, it's gone for a while. So maybe one more question. So the question again for those who couldn't hear is just being able to stick it through and your character, are you saying that's kind of what you trace back to your success?
So would you attribute that to your success?
Yeah, and this is a long story, so I'll try to keep it really short because I want to give you a real answer, right? Because I think the value of coming to these is to get the negative side, right? Not just the glory, right? Yeah, that first company that I told you I sold out of college, it hit a low point that was so miserable. There was a guy who was in it with me 50-50, and he quit because we did not see a way that it was going to work. And although I didn't raise money, I had personally guaranteed to a family member, not that they had invested in the company, they had just lent me money personally to me of 30 grand. And so for me, as a college student, 30 grand was like unbelievable amount of money, right? Like there's just this huge obligation, and there was no way I was not going to not pay that back. And so I was facing a company that we had, it was funny, we actually ran out of FiberNet, our servers and everything, a lot of our bandwidth went through FiberNet, right? And that's how we deliver it to these multi-dwelling units. And the system just kept breaking so much. I mean, imagine working, it felt like 20 hours a day. It was crazy. And the system, and it had to always be up, right? And it was always going down. Some router would fail, some piece of equipment would lock and had to get power cycled or whatever. So imagine like feeling like you're a rat in a cage, racing around, restarting this server. And we had stuff all over the valley. I think there was a cell tower we used to shoot a signal up to and repeat down off of Lake Mountain. So you know the mountain across the lake, which you can't even get to it in the winter without a snowmobile. So, I mean, there were some miserable nights in the cold trying to get this whole network to do what it needed to do. So, and I remember thinking, when we reached our breaking point, and the guy, Brandon, that I started with, who now works at MX, we've worked at multiple startups together, he's a very close friend of mine, but he came to me almost, I don't know if it was in tears, but very like sad and just saying, I'm so sorry, I don't see how this is going to work, I have to leave. And I remember thinking, we're both working for free. If I can't make it work with two of us, how in the world am I going to make it work with one of us? I'm dead. And I'm like, this thing, and I remember I just sat down and I'm like, okay, I can't put any more time in, I can't do anything, whatever. And the phone was always ringing because there was always something in the network breaking. And I remember at that moment, if you had asked me, every bit of logic in my brain would have said, this cannot be solved. I remember feeling that. But the thing is the next day was the next day, and what was I going to do? I wasn't going to quit. I wasn't going to. I had that feeling of saying. And part of it was I was like, I got to pay this 30 grand back, right? So I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do it. So the next day, what I ended up doing is, I remember I made the decision. The phone's going to ring. I'm going to make a prioritized list of what's the worst thing. What's the thing that's making me the most miserable on our network? And there was this stupid wireless link, a licensed band, 30 megabit wireless link that kept going down, and it kept going down, and it kept going down. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to take the last bit of money that we had, and I bought this device that you could power cycle it. So there was always one side of the network was always up. So now I've saved myself a 2-hour round trip to go manually power cycle this thing, but I had to buy this device to do that. Then once that was done, all of a sudden, my overall stress moved a little bit down, but it was still miserable, and I just kept fixing that, and I dealt with the phone calls where people would say, I remember we supported like 30, 40 units, multi-dwelling units at that time, so like hundreds of condos and townhouses. So we just let the phone ring. I mean, I say we, me, right? I just let the phone ring, and it would just ring, and I'd have people with leaving messages. This is ridiculous. We're gonna quit. Like this was like furious and angry at me, and I just kept racing around fixing the priorities. I just focused on the next priority, the next priority, the next priority. What was crazy is in under 30 days, the phone stopped ringing because the network was solid and it was stable. And what it taught me was that you just have to figure out what's the right order you have to do things. And you can solve very complex problems that feel overwhelming. And all I had to do what was in the best long-term interest, not short-term interest. Short-term was just to answer that phone. I'm so sorry, I'm so this, I'll go hurry and fix it right now. And instead, I stopped doing that and I started focusing on how can I get us to safe ground and just let the phone ring. And as a result, that network got stable. And what's crazy is I ended up, as the company started growing, started hiring people back, the person who left came back, and I gave him, he's like, he said to me, I don't feel like I deserve anything, I left you high and dry. I said, no. I gave him, a few percent of the company because we went from here to here in valuation in a very short few months because the whole thing was stable. And we started signing contracts, pretty good contracts, and then I sold it, only a few months after that. So, I don't know, long story, but I think it's somewhat meaningful. Yeah.
Dave, you got to chime in for this. This is where I think it breaks.
You want the heart and soul as the last question.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's this. Every entrepreneur has some version of the story. For me, it was. This was something I felt passionate about doing. I felt committed to doing. This is now talking more about life than it is almost about startups. Once you get into the early days, the bootstrap, I mean, the stress is, the pressure is very real. For me, I'm married. I have, at the time, I had 2 kids. When I started Degree, I had about 8 weeks of personal financial ruin. So, my wife doesn't, living in San Francisco, we made it those couple of weeks. There's no way to tell without the details. At BYU, I paid, one of the jobs I had was buying and selling domains. I learned how to flip domains. It was a skill I had. It was the only skill I had in my pocket that I knew how to turn a quick buck with. As I got ready to start Degree, I knew I was going to want some, cash, and so I started buying and selling domains again. I ended up buying a domain with 120% of my net worth. I put everything I had and maxed out one credit card to do it. The problem was, after a long string of successes, it was the one I couldn't sell. So I had sat on this domain for about 1.5 years, no hope of selling it. And looking your wife in the eyes and saying I'm gonna quit my job, give up our income, and do this. And if we can't figure this out, and the next 40 days, I don't know what we're gonna do, is a crazy moment. But I felt like it was right. I was dedicated to it. I felt like the timing was right. The market was moving, and I was committed to this. I stepped in. And that's why I was pitching Fred Wilson on week 3. Because I was, scared out of my mind and ready to hustle this together. That isn't when you pitch Fred Wilson, by the way. And what happened is after sitting on that domain for 1.5 years, right about week 8, we sold it. We doubled our money. And that finance, the majority of that first year personally for myself, but I also did finance the company that year. So I was paying people's salaries out of my bank account. I didn't take us salary. I mean, it was my bank account. You can shuffle it from one account to the next, but and the hardest moment was, it was funny. I actually ended up. For me, for Degree, that first year was certainly by far the hardest. Again, this was a genre, this wasn't a better mousetrap business. This was opening a category, chasing a vision, doing something the world has never thought of, heard of, or, even since, tried to pursue. And that first year was so hard. But the funny thing about it is that the hardest moment came really right after I raised my first seed financing. So it gotten harder and harder and harder, and there's this tension of, there's enough validation to keep going, but it's hard, and the moment came where, it came time to really evaluate, am I gonna see this through? And, the funny thing was I had made it through 10 months without any money in the bank account. And when I was ready to give up, it was like 2 weeks after, we finally had cash in our bank account. But it was a dark moment, kind of just personally, and I just committed that, after all of this, I'm not gonna give up with money in the bank account, and I will see this thing through to zero, and we've never hit zero. Kept going from there.
We'll just close. I just want to thank these two. I'll pass it to Clint in a minute, but just again want to thank these two. They're like brothers. I love what they're doing. Delighted that you guys would take some time when there's a BYU game and other things going on to listen. And certainly all of us, personally and in our respective companies, we would love to be helpful in any way we can to the startups or dreams that you guys are pursuing. So thanks again. I'll pass it to Clint.
Give these men a round of applause. Just want to thank these guys for making it the best Beehive Startups birthday ever. That's it. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for coming.